Well, it's Saturday morning. I'm about to head out on the anti-NCT protest, which is organised by Mag Ireland. And Mag do great work for motorcycles in Ireland and could do with your support, so you could log onto the website there and have a look at what they're up to. Why do we not want a national safety test for motorcycles? Basically because it's unjustified. There's figures out there that say 1% of all motorcycle accidents, and this is across Europe, 1% of all motorcycle accidents are caused by mechanical failure. I spoke to Noel Brett of the RSA earlier on during the year, and Noel doesn't seem to think there was any evidence to even support the 1%. And the next voice you're going to hear is going to be Noel from the RSA.
We get the data. There's no evidence from the Garda data, and we get 29,500 Garda files a year from collisions. There's no evidence that mechanical failure is an issue in motorcycle collisions.
Well, there you have it. There is one place that stands to make money from this, and it's a company called DEKRA. I have been on to DEKRA, and I'm waiting for a response to them. I spoke to was quite nice, but as things go with big companies, it takes them a while to be able to respond, so hopefully we're going to be back on with them as well. As I said, the figure was 3.5 million. In the current economic climate, I don't think this can be justified in any way whatsoever, as 3.5 million is provide nearly 141 special needs assistants. There's a lot more that could be done with this, and the government is asking where they can save money, and they're being asked to save money by the Troika, and I believe this is most certainly one of the ways that they can save money. As I said, I'm going to head along to the protests. I'm going to speak to a couple of the protesters, and we're also going to speak to Niall Stevens of Bike World and see what his opinion is on it. And then we're going to have an interview as well with Linda from MAG. So that's it from me for the time being. So let's just go to the protest and see what happens. What do you think of the current situation with the NCT for motorcycles and its introduction?
Well, I think it should be introduced. I think it's important that you see people pulling up outside with bikes that shouldn't be on the road, and the problem is they don't realise what's actually wrong until I point it out to them. And they all, when I point it out, they will probably think I have a conflict of interest, let's say. So, I mean, I believe it will bring up the standard of motorcycles on the road once it's introduced properly.
Do you believe there's any other way that could be achieved, that people's awareness of what a roadworthy bike actually is there any way that could be achieved apart from the NCT that may bring in some sort of revenue, because the figures seem to indicate that it's going to cost us money to introduce?
It is going to cost money to introduce, but it does cost money to maintain a motorcycle also. I don't know, I cannot think of any other way, but I would certainly be open to suggestions. That, I do support the idea, the concept of it, but it is very important as to how it's implemented.
Would you agree that now is the time to implement this, or that it would require further discussion?
It should have been implemented 15 years ago. Bikes were dangerous 15 years ago. People were pulling up outside my shop with baldy tyres, the chains hanging off and brake pads down to the metal. And you would not believe the things I've seen people riding around on over the years. It's crazy, and the problem is they just don't know. I mean, I know an awful lot of motorcycles are aware of what's going on underneath it, but an awful lot aren't. Especially people who are just using them for commuting things, or they're not motorcycle enthusiasts. They just use it as a tool for a job. Most motorcycle enthusiasts, because they're in let's say clubs, or they have friends, they have some awareness of what's going on, and in general they tend to take pride in their bike and look after them. But I don't believe the legislation for now is very difficult to legislate for just one group of people.
Do you think that maybe the clubs will be a route to go down, through clubs and motorcycle shops themselves? That may be a way of educating people to be able to do this?
It may be, but how do you enforce that? I mean, I don't know whether that's possible or not. With the current structure of clubs that's out there, and motorcycle dealers, and our motorcycle dealers.
The statistics that says that 1% of motorcycles crashes are based on mechanical failure, is that a statistic that you would agree with, or based on your vast experience? You've been here for years, you've been in motorcycles for years, would you think that's an accurate figure?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I haven't seen many over my period of experience of bikes, which would cover a long time. I haven't seen many motorcycle accidents caused solely by mechanical failure. I'm sure that happens, but I mean, we don't see it here.
Will this NCT require any investment from yourself in new equipment, or are you fully kitted out for this already, or what way do...
Well, it hasn't been finalised on how it's going to be introduced yet. I'm sure we'll go to tender, and they'll be looking for a national network of testers, which is the problem. And they'll probably be looking for one person to do it, or one business to do it, as opposed to a network of dealerships. Yes, we are set up to test any vehicle for any standards, and prepared to those standards.
So you're fully prepared for...
We have the best equipped workshop in the country.
Brilliant, thanks a lot.
If their law, as they're suggesting it comes in, nearly every bike here will be put off the road for some reason or other. Mainly stupid reasons.
And would you own more than one bike yourself?
No, unfortunately.
You just have the one?
I have the one.
And how long are you biking?
Since I was 15.
Do you believe that anyone that's bringing in this legislation is a biker, or would have rode bikes for years? Or
No. What's the statistics show that something less than 1% of accidents are caused by a technical fault on a bike.
That's Europe-wide.
Europe-wide.
And the government is trying to tell you that they're bringing it in for safety, and that it's an EU directive that it's all about safety. The insurance statistics themselves from the insurance companies Europe-wide, including the countries that have NCT and the countries that don't have NCT, have proven that it's less, I think it's 0.6 or 1% of the accidents caused or involved in motorcycles are caused by the bike not being in the right condition. So basically, it seems more like they're just trying to get revenue. And the guys that are the driving force behind the legislation don't seem to understand bikes and seem to be just looking at bikes as a problem they want to get rid of, and not seeing bikes as a possible solution to congestion, to traffic problems. It doesn't make sense, and you just have to stand up and count.
in the current economic climate, do you believe that the government is even going to make money out of this, or do you believe it'll cost them money?
They have proven that in the countries that have it, the revenue they gain from the tests doesn't cover the costs of running the tests. So how can the Irish government, who hasn't got the facilities, will have to train up people, will have to introduce more, how can they? They're not going to make money. It's going to cost the taxpayer. So why burden the taxpayer even more with stupid legislation?
Thanks, mate.
Okay, we came out today because the EU are trying to introduce NCT for bikes, fast tractors, trailers all across Europe. They're basing their figures from a company that supplies NCT. They're far in excess of every single figure from the member states. It's a cost that we shouldn't have to bear. It's just a money-raising exercise by DEKRA, and we're supposed to be, sold this as this is a safety measure. Across Europe, it's a standard figure. 1% of accidents or less are because a vehicle is not roadworthy. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make safety sense, and we've been sold this as a safety issue when it isn't. It's purely to allow DEKRA to make more money. That's all it is.
In the current economic situation that we're in this country, do you think that the government is ever even going to make any sort of a profit out of such a thing from an NCT? If you were to look at it from trying to bring money into the country, are they going to make money out of this?
No. In the meantime, all those test centres are now not paying tax because they've had capital expenditure on a non-existent road safety issue. Yeah. So in fact, it's going to cost our government more money to implement something that doesn't exist. I know the Dutch government have already written to the Commission and said, we're not interested. No.
Do you think it's legislation for legislation's sake?
No, I think it's DEKRA doing everything it can to get more money into their coffers. They've gone to the health and safety elves in the EU Commission and sold this as a safety issue. Yes, we all want to see lower road deaths. We want to see them by people taking more care and attention. We want to see them by people having the right attitude to, I share these roads over people. We don't want something that just says, oh, well, you have this little piece of paper and this is going to make you safer. It isn't. That little piece of paper is only actually valued that day. The day that they've checked your car, they can say, yes, at this moment in time, it's safe. The next day, there's no guarantee it's safe again. You hit a pothole, which God knows we've got enough of, your bike can become unroadworthy. And you've still got pieces of paper that says, until this time next year. Yeah? And that's another part of the problem, is the EU are talking about first test 4 years after registration of a new vehicle, and then annually after that. Yeah? It's just money making for DEKRA. It's not road safety. It's been sold as road safety because they're distorting the figures. They're claiming 8%. All the member states are claiming 1%. It's a hell of a difference.
For those 1% of motorcycles that are basically crashing due to mechanical failure, would there be any sort of way that there could be an education programme set up throughout the clubs so that maybe people could come and learn, and there could be a voluntary thing, and maybe the clubs could be given some form of government funding if that was the issue to do it? Is there any other way of taking this small problem and making it better, basically?
I know from talking to younger riders, 9 times out of 10 they learn by talking to other bikers about what is safe and what isn't safe, and most of them learn. You will always have a small group who will not listen and will not take care of their own safety. I know this from when I lived in England. You would get people, I worked in a bike shop, and you would literally get people come in, have the bike serviced, take it over the road to get it MOT'd, and then that was the only time it'd be serviced until the next MOT. Yeah? And if the brake discs fell out in between, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't have brakes. That's very, very small group. You are not going to change their attitude. Yeah? You have it with car drivers, you have it with all road users. There is a small minority group who don't think about their safety. Yeah?
So basically the compliance level that we have already is it's less than what it would normally be for cars.
Yeah.
So we don't need to legislate for this, is basically what we're...
Yeah, but if you
point.
look at the figures, in the UK where they have the MOT for bikes, 20% fail on the first visit. Most of that is for either tyres or headlights. Yeah. NCT over here, 52% of all cars fail their NCT on the first visit. Yeah, now that's a big gap. Bikers know they're vulnerable. Yeah. 99% of them look after a bike because they know their safety is there. If they don't look after the bike, they're unsafe. That small group, as I say, who aren't going to do it, it doesn't matter if you bring in the NCT, it's not going to change their attitude.
In your opinion, Linda, if they took maybe a quarter of the funding that they're willing to spend on what a lot of us can see as what's probably going to be a pointless NCT, if they took a quarter of the funding they're going to use for that and educated car drivers on motorcycles, their position, what it would be like to ride a motorcycle, and just the courtesy that should be given to people on motorcycles, because we are quite a vulnerable group. Yeah. Do you think that would reduce road deaths?
Yeah, I think that's a much better way of doing it. The DOE Department of Environment in the UK recently put out an excellent ad, which basically said, 90% of accidents aren't accidents, they're incidents. They could have been stopped with the right attitude. Yeah. And it actually shows a couple of crashes where if the road user had been a bit slower, a bit more courteous, the accident wouldn't have happened. And that is actually a message that needs to be driven home to road users. We share the roads with others, and it's our attitude. And it's something Mag has said for a long time. It's not accidents, they're incidents. They're incidents caused by, in most cases, a car driver wrapped in his cocoon, feeling safe, not accepting that he can come off just as bad as the biker, the pedestrian, the cyclist, and it's an attitude change that is needed. There is no more legislation that is going to really reduce accident figures now. We now need to start working on people's attitudes to sharing the roads with everybody. And that is where we need to concentrate across Europe, is sharing the roads, the right attitude people have towards sharing the roads.
With the bike sales figures dropping through the floor, and we have much less of an uptake in motorcycling than we had numerous years ago, how much of that would you put down to the new licensing laws that they're trying to introduce and the new theory test? And there's a lot of new stuff coming out there for bikes, and for someone getting into it, it can be quite daunting, and they could say, sure, I'm not going to bother because I just don't understand it. Do you believe that that is one thing that's pushing motorcycle sales down, is one thing that's knocking people out of motorcycles, when what we could be doing is we could be using them to get rid of congestion? There's a lot of benefits to bike, but I believe that the overcomplication of this may be hurting the motorcycle trade, whereas that could be a form of income, where people can have a car and a bike and it'll help change attitudes. Would you agree with that opinion?
Yeah. Other European cities have looked at this, where they have congestion charges. Quite often motorcycles are exempt purely because they are regarded as part of the solution. They don't add to the congestion, they take it away. And they want to welcome motorbikes into the city centres because it's not a congestion problem. Unfortunately over here, Dublin Transport Authority is headed up by somebody who is anti-motorcycle and believes that the only transport that should be allowed in Dublin city centre is bicycles and public transport. So as far as he's concerned, anything else with an engine should be banned. And you can't have somebody in that position with that attitude. More proactive people say bikes are not the problem. Bikes are a big part of the solution, especially in cities. The M50, they scrapped the tolls because it was no longer cost effective to take the tolls from motorbikes. They've got to start copying on to motorbikes are a big part of the solution of congestion, and start promoting their use.
Linda, how long have you been working for MAG?
15 years.
Have you ever had any funding from the government?
No.
Why do you believe that? That they haven't come to you and said, you're even just to say you're doing a great job and you're keeping us informed, why do you believe they haven't supported you in any way financially, even through the good times?
Because they've no interest in motorbikes. We do a Bikers Are Voters campaign at all the elections, and they don't consider us to be voters. They consider bikers to be outside of normal society. They don't vote, and I've been told that by politicians. Oh, bikers don't vote. Bikers are individuals. They come from all walks of life, and to say, oh, bikers en masse do not vote is totally ridiculous.
And even if bikers didn't vote, that's just that.
We pay our taxes.
We pay our taxes, and if we feel like we're being ignored, and we feel like we're being persecuted by quite a lot of the new laws that are being brought out. And not only are we being persecuted, we're not even being listened to.
Now, I would give the Road Safety Authority their due. They do try to consider motorbikes. They listen to what we're saying because they accept we're the riders, we're the experts. And then they go to the government and say, let's do this. And it's, oh no. There's no funding. One of the simple things, during the Celtic Tiger years, we constantly put in submissions to have the rate of VAT lowered on PPE.
Safety equipment.
No, it's never happened. We've been campaigning, in the 15 years I've been in MAG, 15 years of campaigning at EU level to have PPE zero rated. We have a website letter up that individuals can download to send to the Commission, and it's one of the points we're making. If you're really concerned about my safety, zero rate my protective equipment. Don't worry about an NCT. Stop me having to pay nearly a quarter of the price of my clothing. As it's government. We pointed out to the Mr. Noonan, our last letter, if he reduced the rate of VAT, it'd make it a lower rate. We said to the services, which is 13%, a lower rate than most of Europe. The bike shops would then be able to set up websites, be able to sell. It would create employment. It would create, there'd be money coming in. Now, whoosh, straight over their heads. They can't seem to accept that taxing us for protecting ourselves is morally wrong. Now, as a helmet, I have to wear a helmet. And nearly a quarter of the price of that helmet goes to the government as revenue. Yeah. So first of all, they mandate that I have to wear it, and then they mandate the high cost of it. I know one of the importers who supplies shops up north, and he, when he's retailing helmets, he can't sell them at the price they're selling up north because the UK government said we are not lifting the derogation on helmets.
Linda, on a tourist point of view, do you believe that, like I firmly believe that Ireland has great potential to be a tourist destination for motorcyclists?
Yeah.
Do you believe that, do you know of any studies, do you believe that anybody has gone and even looked into this completely untapped market? Because our roads are scenic, we have some of the most beautiful sites in Europe, and we're an island. You can travel around Ireland and it's just, do you believe that there could be more done to do this?
A lot more. Mag Ireland is looking at doing a set of maps for tourists, more scenic routes. We're going to try and do everything we can to actively promote tourism. I get regular emails into the MAG office from all over the world, people who want to do bike tours in this country. And they love it. They've always come back with great feedback. They love the welcome they get from the Irish people, all the rest of it. And I know from talking to my colleagues in FBMA, the amount of riders that come over year after year. The MAG chairman is actually talking to a Swedish group who are coming over next year to do a tour of Ireland. Yeah? And it's there, the potential market for bike tourism is huge because Ireland has such a warm welcome and it's totally ignored. I know when we're looking at the route maps, we're going to try and go off the funding, and that will be our biggest uphill battle, is getting funding to have these printed. Yeah?
Thank you very much, Linda.
I've just been thanked by the guards for a well-formed group. Very impressive, very happy. That means we'll get help the next time. This went really smoothly. It just shows we know more than the legislators in Brussels about what actually is good for us, what does promote safety. I've just got to say thank you. At this end of it, doing all the organising that the board has done and the volunteers have done, we couldn't do it this well without you. Fair play, well done. Now, if we've been of use to you, any questions, or if you want to join, or if you want details on how to join online, which can now be done quarterly, tenner ago, talk to us. We'll be around. We'll be easy to find. Yeah, that's great. Very easy to find. That's it, folks. Have a coffee, chill out. If you want directions out of town or anything, let us know. We'll be around. Thank you again.
What I've managed to find out about DEKRA, apart from them supplying their safety equipment, is that their revenues are colossal. It's quite a big business. They've turned over 1.7 billion in 2009. 2010 they turned over 1.8 billion, and in 2011 they turned over 2 billion. So DEKRA is quite a big company. I'm sure that quite a lot of the business comes from mandatory vehicle testing across Europe, although I have asked them for the figure of exactly how much of the business does come from mandatory testing, so I'm looking forward to getting those figures back. As I said, the gentleman I talked to was quite nice, but of course they have their own official channels to go through, so as I said, we're hoping to hear back from them soon. This doesn't seem to be something that we need. It seems to be something that's being pushed on us, and it doesn't seem to be justifiable. And if you were a businessman, it most certainly would not be your honour, because it's never going to make money.